Good morning, guys. I want to welcome you to something that we're going to try a little differently this year at the beginning. As you may have seen in some of your classes, if this is not your first one, we're going to start off by trying to share some common tips that we think will work well for everyone, no matter what level of testing you're at. And my job is going to be to talk to you about the reading test. So, over the next few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to some tips and tricks that I hope will help you, no matter where your score is, to improve it so that it's even better. We're going to take a look at a passage today, and you'll answer some questions. And then when you come back next week, we'll go over the answers and talk about how the strategies match up with each one of the things that we've tried to help you to do. And so, without further ado, let's talk about some simple things we can all do to ensure success on the reading portion of the ACT. So, the first tip is one that I hope doesn't seem too strange. For most students, time is always a factor on the test, and especially in reading, where you feel like there's a ton to read, and so you generally move too fast, and therefore you don't understand what you've read, and then you have to go back and read it all over again, over and over and over again, and you end up wasting time. So the first tip that I want to give to everybody is to know what a good pace looks like. So, pace yourself. And for many of you, that means slow down. Even though that might seem strange, hear me out. Now, on the test, you have 4 passages, and you have roughly 9 minutes to complete each passage, just a little bit less than that, closer to 8 minutes and 45 seconds. It's actually a lot more time to work through a passage than you might think. But the one way that you can definitely run out of time is if the first time you go through the passage, you try to read it too quickly, and therefore don't understand it, then you end up having to go back and look at the passage over and over and over again to try and reteach yourself over and over and over again what it means. Now, I know that different people think about reading in a lot of different ways. Some people here like to read the passage all the way through very closely. Some people are just going to try to skim to find the basic information. However, for today's purposes, we're going to pretend that we're reading the passage all the way through. And we're going to read that passage once at a slow pace, and we're going to do that in between 3 and 4 minutes. Closer to 3 is better. Now, you might think that 3 minutes is not a lot of time, but in just a moment, you'll see that it actually gives you a chance to read slower and much more closely than you might think. So, to reiterate, tip number 1, keep your pace, keep it slow, and know what you're doing. So, you've read the passage. Now, the second question comes. What am I supposed to remember from it? And the good news is, not much. At the end of the day, the ACT is really, first and foremost, testing your ability to know what the point of a passage is. In other words, what it is that the author was trying to get at in the first place. Whether it's a scientific passage telling you about a discovery, or a fiction passage telling you about the saga of someone's life journey. In either of those cases, and in the other ones as well, the test is testing, if you will, your ability to recognize what I call in my class either the theme for fiction passages or the thesis for nonfiction passages. So that's the second strategy that I'd like to send you with today. When you get done with the passage, you need to know its theme/thesis. And if you don't, you probably haven't read as closely as you want to. So what is a theme or thesis? Well, I've described a little bit about it, but I'm standing here because what's on the wall behind me might be an example of a thesis. We know that it has a subject. It's about school. It's about something Brother Martin said. But that's not the same thing as knowing what those words mean. We are not here to teach boys how to make a living, but how to make a life. If you can carry an idea roughly that size around in your head, then you have everything you need to understand theme and thesis when you read passages on the ACT. So, we've taken our time to read the passage thoroughly, and we feel like we know what the theme or the thesis is. That means the third strategy should be a fairly simple one. Predict answers before you see them. Now, if I've read a passage and I have a good idea of what it's about, not only will I be able to make some guesses about the kinds of questions that I'm going to be asked, and by the way, we'll talk more about that later, most of the questions you're going to find are just variations on the same single idea. What is the theme or the thesis of this passage? But over and above that, whenever you see a question, you should definitely be able to predict an answer. So, if we've read thoroughly, we've taken our time to do so, or if we've skimmed and still have a basic idea of what the passage is about, as long as we understand that theme and thesis, then the third strategy we should be able to implement. Predict an answer before you see the choices. Have an idea of what it is you think the answer will probably be. Now, is this going to work 100% of the time? No. Sometimes you think you'll have an idea of what the answer is going to look like and then find that none of the answer choices seem to match that prediction. Don't let that bother you. In fact, we'll talk more about what to do with that in our next strategy. The fourth and final strategy we're going to talk about today is related to the one that came before it. Not only is it important to be able to predict the right answer, but we also need to work efficiently to know how to eliminate answers which are clearly wrong. You may not believe it, but the ACT really has only so many tricks up its sleeve when it writes answers that are designed to trip you up. Sometimes an answer might be too specific. Sometimes it might be too broad. It might incorrectly reverse the relationship between things. Or it might be an answer which is off topic entirely. These are four things that the ACT does all the time, solely for the purpose of trying to confuse you and cause you to pick the wrong answer. But once you learn how to recognize those obstacles and pitfalls, not only do you not fall for them as much, but you become a lot more efficient about eliminating them. And again, saving yourself time. If we can make it so that you can get through the bulk of questions in a much more rapid fashion and an efficient way, then when you really get to those ones that trip you up and you're not quite sure what to do with, you set yourself up in a lot better position to be able to take the time you need to figure them out. So, to reiterate that last one of the day, know how to eliminate wrong answers. So, using those four strategies, keeping the right pace, understanding the theme or the thesis of a writing passage, predicting the correct answer, and knowing how to eliminate wrong answers, let's take a look at a passage together. Hey guys, sorry to jump right in the middle of this video. Just wanted you to know that last week, because we have more than one rotation, we were able to actually read through that passage in the video together. But because you guys just have this one class left in the rotation, I wanted to cut the video a little bit short so that you would have time to go through the passage, answer the questions, and see the right answers before you go. So this video is about to come to an end. When it does, your teacher's going to pass the passage and answer choices out to you. You're going to get about 9 minutes or so, which remember is how long we want to take to read through the passage on a good pace, find that thesis, do our best with the answers, and then leave ourselves enough time at the end to be able to go over them and see how we did. I want to wish you the best of luck, and I want you to have a great rest of your day.